Welcome back to M&M Hour with our dear friend Mandy Slutzker. Yay! Mandy's back.
It's the most millennial thing I've done. I'm like raising the roof, like elder millennial.
Yeah, for those who watching on video, that is quite an elder millennial.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Mandy.
What do the kids call it? Cringe.
We have missed you. You've been in the weeds. You've had a lot going on. Can you share a little bit about what's going on and where things are at now for you?
Yeah. So I'm doing really well. My dad is doing really well, which is amazing. At the end of December, he was diagnosed with very, very severe coronary artery disease that had just gone undetected because he passed every stress test and he had low cholesterol. So he wasn't kind of ever flagged as someone that would have coronary artery disease. So by the time they figured it out, most of the people that we had met with said that his situation was inoperable. And I would not accept that as an answer. And I was able to get him in with the Cleveland Clinic, and they had someone who could operate. And so about a month ago, he underwent a quadruple bypass and an endarterectomy, which is when they open up the artery and they pull the plaque out. It's a very intense procedure. And he made it through great, and he is in recovery still. And on day 10, he was able to head back from Cleveland to Florida, and where he's been recovering since. So I'm doing okay. I'm doing well. There's like this initial sort of elation that I think you feel when a surgery goes well, and you think it's going to last a really long time, and then you realize it doesn't. It wears off. And then all of the stress that you had from those few months kind of like starts to leave your body. So I've had a lot of physical reactions to stress, despite my head being in a really good space now. So that's been an unusual thing to deal with, where like last week I had a panic attack and I was not at all anxious about anything. It was literally my body like releasing whatever was going on.
Months of stress and worry and trauma, because I'm your friend, I'm not your therapist, and I don't want to therapize you. But when I talked to you about this, I was really concerned for your mental health because you lost your mother, and that the trauma of that, and there's no getting over that. There's no getting over it. You get through it one day at a time. But then I think when the stuff happened with your dad, it triggered this physiological fear in every cell of your body about losing another parent, grief of losing someone very important to us. It almost, when something happens again, it amplifies it. It's like louder and it's more painful and it's scarier and, you know, all of those things. So I was honored that you allowed me to help, you know, kind of keep you grounded and help you, because I could tell that anxiety was just like taking over your whole body.
It was bad.
And so it was
really not good. Yeah. It was the most anxious I've been in 10 years.
And listen, but again, understandably so. And so sometimes I think like it's a message that all we can do is attend to our bodies, because it's a testament to love, right? It's a testament to this man is the most important person in your life. And so I'm just grateful for him and grateful for you. And I just want to say, I mean, I've told you this privately, but I am immensely proud of you, because the way that you managed this, I mean, you crushed it, girl. You crushed it.
I'm not sure my family would agree with that, but yes.
Listen, I didn't say you were perfect. I just said you crushed it.
No, it was, I think I let my thoughts go to really wild places that were hard for certain people in my family to hear where my head was at. And also, like, why are you doing this? You're like making yourself sick, sort of a thing. But one funny story is, so after the surgery, but before we heard from the surgeon, they like brought us to this room, and we were not feeling super stressed until we were in the room. And then at this same exact moment, me and my stepmom were like, wait, why are we in this room? Why are they telling us some bad news? Like, why are we in a room? Why are we in a private room? Like, and so, you know, my stepmom, she started crying. I laid on the ground with like my feet, my knees up, like, and just was doing deep breathing. And she like thought that was kind of nuts. And I was like, I just need to ground myself. Like I need to lie on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But then her tears got like pretty bad. And so I was like, oh, let me get Kleenex for you. She was like, oh my God, he's going to come in and just like think I'm so crazy, the surgeon. And I was like, if you want, I can just like get back on the ground and I'll be the crazy one. we just like both like couldn't stop laughing. And then he comes in and he's like, he could see that we were just like such a mess. The surgeon was like, it went fantastic. It was great. We're like, God, this man.
Do you know what that reminds me of in the weirdest way? Is there was an episode on Sex and the City where Samantha is going to get an HIV test and they bring her back to a room. And on the way back, she like has a panic attack and passes out. And what they were really going to do is just like kind of lecture her about like
like safe sex. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think it's like, you know, when you're in that situation, I mean, your brain is literally hijacked. I love that sharing about your experiences because it normalizes it for people. And listen, I think grounding yourself on the ground and deep breathing, like, listen, do what you got to do, boo.
Yeah. I was just like, I immediately was like, okay, getting on the ground. Like, breathing, you know, like telling myself, like, you know, because like I sometimes felt like, oh, am I going to pass out? Am I going to like fall over? You know, when you're on the ground, you can't like fall over.
And you can't, if you pass out, you're already on the ground. I mean, listen, 2 birds, 1 stone.
So yeah, and we were just like so grateful. And my dad was very funny when he was coming out of anesthesia. He said, like, first of all, when they took the breathing tube out, the nurse, he like looked at the nurse and was like, are you real? The nurse was like,
wait, what did he say?
Are you real? Like kind of like he wasn't sure what reality he was in. Like, is this my dream state? Is this my like,
is this real
and then,
life?
and then he goes, am I real? And this guy was like laughing.
Your podcast is this real life?
It's real life. I know.
And dad woke up from surgery and basically was like, is this real life?
Is this real life? And then we got to see him after, and I was just shocked at how good he looked because I expected him to be like, look kind of like a ghost, right? And he had color in his face. So I was like, Dad, you look really good. His eyes are so closed. And he goes, I'm the male model. I see you. We had the competition. So at this point, this nurse is starting, it's a guy, he's starting to realize like my dad's Russian. Like he didn't know. And the nurse is a hockey player and ended up like once my dad started feeling a little better and could talk, they ended up like talking about hockey, which was great, you know, and I think my dad enjoyed. But like a few days later, we were like, Dad, do you know what you said when you were coming out of anesthesia? He's like, what? No, what'd I say? And we told him. And then he looks to the right, he looks to the left. He goes, well, I mean, no wonder I won the competition. He's like, everyone in here is like half dead.
You know, the one thing we talked about by the way, part 1 of this podcast we just recorded on Mandy's podcast, Is This Real Life? One of the things that we talked about was how humor, I just feel like it is so life-saving in terms of like whether you have like a very serious health issue or, you know, with the state of the world right now. I think humor is so important. And that's one of the things that I love about your dad is just, you know, growing up in really challenging circumstances in Russia and, you know, fearing for his life and having safety be an issue. It's like people use humor to survive, to thrive, to get through those challenges. And I think that, you know, that's one of the things that keeps him here and keeps him resilient and keeps him healthy. And I'm really grateful for that. And I just love it too. When you talk to me about his humor, I'm like, this is my twin flame. Your dad is my twin flame.
So funny when it's like he heard what his joke was and then he like, you know, decided to do a little bit based on his joke. We're like, Dad.
He's like doing bits fresh out of anesthesia. That is that is top notch. Top notch, sir. I love it.
Man.
Well, Mandy, I am so grateful. He's better. You're better. I mean, he's healing, right? He's not better.
He's
it doesn't
healing.
happen instantly, but he's on the road to recovery.
On the way.
you're on the road to recovery, and we're back with M&M Hour. People were devastated that we have not podcasted together. And I'm not going to lie, I did notice, I'm like, oh my God, I really miss this. I really miss her.
I did too. I took 2 weeks off the podcast, which I've never done.
Good for you.
Yeah,
You had to.
Yeah. Whew.
Yeah. So now it's good to be back. It's good to see your beautiful face and chat and talk about all things Bravo. But before we get into Bravo, Mandy, the one thing that I do have to bring up is I do want to take the chance to drag Tiger Woods, and I'm going to tell y'all why. So season 1, episode 4, Rubbish Therapist is now in season 6. I've done a ton of episodes, but my 4th episode, season 1, I told my story of when I made a wish through the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and I met the cast of Friends, I met the cast of ER, I met the cast of West Wing, and it was just the coolest experience of my life. And this was, by the way, in 2000. On Instagram, I said it was 1999, but it was really 2000, so I was wrong about that. But we were told by our Make-A-Wish handler, who shall remain nameless, that Tiger Woods is the only person to have denied making a child's wish come true, a child who was dying of cancer. He refused to make wishes. Refused. And ever since then, and listen, I'm going to be honest, there's a lot of projecting in this for me, right? Because when this happened, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer at age 17. It was stage 3C, and I was not supposed to live. And ironically, in about a week, I will be celebrating 27 years in remission from a cancer that I wasn't supposed to survive. I know, very cool. But I was a child who was supposed to be dying from cancer, and my wish was granted, and it meant the literal world to me. And when I found this out about Tiger Woods, I'm like, oh, you're a monster. You're a literal piece of shit. Like, because when I posted this on Instagram, some people were really nasty, which is just like, naturally, it's the internet, making excuses for him because, like, you know, famous privilege is real. I mean, famous privilege got OJ off on murders he, of course, committed. But my point of this being, people were like, oh, well, he was in the height of his career. And it's like, John Cena and The Rock have never refused to make a wish. Never, ever, ever, ever. The Rock and John Cena, if they have the time to make hundreds of thousands of wishes come true, you're telling me Tiger Woods can't do that? I just think it speaks to the fact that this man is a menace to society. He doesn't care about trying to help children. He just got his second DUI in Jupiter, Florida. He is rich. He doesn't care about endangering people. He doesn't care about endangering anyone. He is an egomaniacal POS. Rant over. What do you think, Mandy?
I think they should take away his cars, let him live in his house and, away from everyone else.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, it's like the same thing with Karen Huger, except for like Tiger Woods has a ton of money and is super famous. It's like, get a driver. There is no reason to continue to do this. But the reason why I talk about it is it's clear that he has some very serious problems.
Yeah.
Substances being one of them, which I usually have a lot of empathy for. But he also is super egomaniacal because it's like, again, I just remember being a kid who was supposed to be dying, and it just hurt my feelings. I'm going to be honest. It hurt my feelings to hear that there were kids out there who they were dying and their last wish was to meet this guy. And he was just like, nah, that upsets me.
I mean, he sucks. He sucks. I remember everyone thinking he was this like golden child, sort of like everyone knew about his relationship with his dad, and his dad came to like every, I don't know, you call it a game. I don't know what it is with golf and match. Okay. And he, it wasn't until that like in 2009 where he had that car crash and his wife took the golf clubs and was like going after whatever happened. It was like all of a sudden he had all of these affairs. He has all these issues. Like he's no longer this like perfect like person. And so it's just, you never know what's behind someone, and because he was in the limelight for a really long time before any of this came out. So I don't know how it was kept under wraps for so long, like his issues, but wow, like when it all came out, it was the most shocking thing because people really thought he was this like golden child, And now things can come out about famous people. Like people don't want to believe that Brad Pitt, was violent with his children and his wife. But there's a lot of evidence pointing to the fact that that man is a domestic abuser. Maybe he's not
and
anymore.
The biggest evidence
but like
being those children are sharing their experience, and we need to hear them.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of famous privilege. There's pretty privilege. There's sports privilege. I mean, and again, the reason I just shared this experience is because when I put it on Instagram, I mean, there were people immediately defending this man. And here I am being like, I was a child who was dying, and it was sad that he didn't do this. And people are like, who cares?
Well, the internet is where, dreams go to die, according to Taylor Swift. So you shouldn't feed it anything.
She's right. I did it. I blocked the person immediately. I was like, well, you don't belong here. Bye-bye. So anyway, let us move on. I just had to drag Tiger a minute first. So let's, what should we talk about first, Mandy? Summer House or Southern Charm? What do you think?
Let's do Southern Charm.
Okay. Let's do Southern Charm. The internet was shocked by Madison, myself included. I want to know your thoughts.
Well, I was very shocked by Madison because she was singing a very different tune at this reunion than she was at BravoCon. And there's not like there was that much time in between. So at BravoCon, she seemed like she was very much on Austin's side. And she said, and I quote, like, if Craig had said some of the things to me that he said to Austin, I don't think we would be friends. So
really?
Yeah. I mean, I think she was like, I'm friends with Craig, but he hasn't done it to me, kind of a thing. But like, if I was Austin, I could understand. Yeah. So it was very weird. And I know she's closer with Austin. I think she's a bit pissed that Austin threw away a relationship that was good for him to mess around with Sally, who isn't good for him, according to like Madison. Like, it's just like, why are you doing this? You don't like her. You're making it harder for yourself to do anything, like have a good relationship. Like that, I think that is part of it. But then she also has a bit of Miss Pat in her, and that boys will be boys and, standing up for Craig and making it seem like she, if he's having a meltdown, then it's your responsibility as his friend to stop that meltdown and to not make him look bad on camera, is what I feel like she was saying. And I just don't think that she has seen as much of Craig in his worst moments, or she has forgotten conveniently, because not many seasons ago during the reunion was when he outed the fact that she was DMing with A-Rod, and he called her horrible, horrible names. And he said, she was toxic and stay away from Austin. And I think, I feel like and then another part of me is like, she cares about the show. And if Craig has no allies, then she has to step up and be an ally. And that's where I kind of land on the majority of her behavior, is because she wants to keep this thing going more. Like, I don't even know what she really believes. I think she just wants, but they all seem a little bit shocked at her behavior. The rest of the cast, everyone.
Yeah.
And so I feel like she was putting on a bit of a show just to keep things moving with the cast, because she was very different at BravoCon.
Mandy, you never fail to disappoint, because you just brought up, I feel like you just answered all of my questions. Because, and the BravoCon piece, so when she said all that stuff, was it on a panel?
It was on a panel for Southern Charm. And it was sort of like, who's going to have the most to answer for this season? And everyone's like, Craig. They talked about how Craig and Austin aren't in a great place. And then she said, if you said some of that stuff to Austin, that you said that to me, I wouldn't be friends with you, kind of a thing. She really was standing up for Austin in a way. And it seemed like her and Austin were in a really great place, friendship wise. They really had a chemistry that seemed very platonic.
They did.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, there is this switch flip where she's telling Craig, Austin's not your friend. She's whispering to Craig, if you had a real friend there, they would have stopped you from having a blackout-induced tantrum, which it's like, Madison, I normally like Madison, but this last part of the reunion pissed me right off. I'm like, Madison, you just had a baby girl. If that baby girl was Sally in this van and you're going to support that fucking bullshit behavior, trying to claim that if he had a friend there, someone could have calmed him down, that is saying that people are responsible for managing Craig's tantrums, which
that
is
women are responsible. Yeah.
Yes, which is the most insane, misogynistic, and just factually wrong thing that I have ever heard in my life. I was so angry about it. I was like, are you kidding, Madison? But what you're saying about her being mad about he and Sally, and
I
then
think so.
her being wanting the show to continue, those things for me fill in gaps that feel like it makes sense to me. Because at the end of the day, this show is Madison's livelihood. And you know what I feel like, the evidence that I feel like supports what you're saying, because I don't know why I remembered this, but I did. At the end of the reunion, Madison said, like, we are a cast that we are legitimately all real friends. And I think that's really special. And I thought to myself, are you delusional? Like, what do you mean? But I think at the end, like, it's the classic things that all the housewives do at the end of the reunion, right? They fight, they hate each other. But at the end, everyone does this kind of like, so we all want to come back, right? But it's very coded. We all want to come back. So let's pretend that we're this cohesive group of real friends so that nobody fires us and we can just have more seasons. And I think that's what Madison was doing.
Well, and I do think that they actually are all friends and hanging out off camera in a way that they haven't before. But I don't think Craig fits in that mix. And I think she knows that Craig is important to the show because he's been there from the beginning and people watch for Craig and Austin and Shep, whether we like it or not. And she, I think, wants to keep it all like the formula, right? She's like, we can't have this break up because then the whole formula of the show breaks up. But I also think she's frustrated with Austin because he makes decisions that are not in his best interest, you know? And I don't think she like wanted him to stay with Audrey if that's not what he really wanted, but it's just because he couldn't figure out what he wanted. And she's just like, dude, like you're not going to get a girl that's better than this. Like she like was so understanding. She was really kind. You guys really got along, you know, and then now you break up and now you're like messing around with Sally, who you don't have any respect for. Like, why are you wasting your time doing something like that?
Right. It frustrates me because personally, and I want to know what you think about this, I don't know that I can do another season of Southern Charm with the same old bullshit. I really don't think that I can. Craig, you know, people were saying, you know, Craig kept threatening to leave and walk off. And I said on social media, I'm like, this man's ego will never allow him to step away. He'll gripe about it. He'll complain about it. He'll play the victim because that's what he does. He lives in the victim role. This man will come back unless he's fired, and he's not going to be fired. But it's like, I don't understand why on some shows, substance abuse is a real issue. And on some shows like Southern Charm, we just pretend that it doesn't exist. On some shows, racism and misogyny is talked about. And on Southern Charm, everyone pretends like that doesn't exist. And so I guess what I'm saying is I'm starting to feel like I have a real problem with the culture of this show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, the culture of the show has been like that since the beginning, and it's given me like the heebie-jeebies for a while, like ever since they walked through that plantation and Catherine was like, here's where the slaves like graveyard is. I was like, what the hell is wrong with these people?
Oof.
But
yeah.
What was interesting last night, because I'd always thought that Craig maybe had a addiction issue, and I still think he does, right? But
well, he clearly misuses alcohol, and he said that he's an addict. So that's not a far leap.
Yeah. But what I heard from the cast is that they think the biggest issue that he has is anger and that he doesn't know how to control his anger. And it's almost like they think even in the absence of alcohol or drugs, he would still have this problem, which is not where my head was at. My head was like, oh, let's get him sober and let's see what he's like. or get him to cut back the way that like Shep has cut back. When Shep is not inebriated, he does not act out. He doesn't. Like, we don't see him ever act weirdly and inappropriately when he is sober. But it seems as though the cast has seen Craig act extremely inappropriate and very angry and scary, even when he's not drinking. And so that was something that I hadn't really clocked until everyone, especially when Molly was like, I had anger issues too. And she's like, and it's always an emotion that's like tied to fear or tied to sadness, like a secondary emotion. And Craig and I'm glad that they're not filming right now because I can't even imagine his reaction to all of the success that Paige is having. Like, Paige is having win after win after win after win. And she even said something on Giggly Squad the other week where it was like, my biggest hater was in my bed. And it's like, you hate me and you want to be me. And that's true. He wanted all of the success. He didn't want her to have too much success, right? It's like, you can shine, but not too bright.
And look at
me.
Right. And look at how it's amazing what can happen when we get out of a relationship that no longer serves us. Because do you think all these things would be happening if they were still together? I don't think so.
No.
I think that Craig his ego is very bruised, and all of these things that he's trying to do are to save face, to protect himself. But what I loved what Molly said in terms of anger being a secondary emotion. So I want to explain quick in psychology what that's essentially saying is that the anger is the tip of the iceberg, and then underneath there's all these other emotions: fear, sadness, guilt, shame, grief, all of these other things. There is definitely some truth to that. I mean, anger can exist without those other things. What I think the cast is saying is that for the first time, we never really realized, everyone thought, oh, well, if he just puts the booze down, it'll be better. And it's like, no, there are problematic parts to his personality. And that, to me, is honestly the scary thing, because addiction, that can be addressed and that can be worked on. But when you have these problematic personality characteristics, like huge ego, inability to own anything, anger, like Craig's thinking that he has the ability to lash out and wound people just because he's hurt, that is a real huge red flag personality characteristic that, I'm going to be honest, I never diagnose. That's not what I do. It's not appropriate. But that piece is part of some very significant personality issues that, unless Craig actively worked very, very hard to say, okay, I know this is part of my personality, I understand it, I want to make changes, there is no way his behavior is changing. And for me, that informs my opinion about the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I just feel like continuing to watch Southern Charm for me may not be healthy. And, I don't know. I'm going to have to give it some time. The other thing I wanted to mention about this, Mandy, while I'm thinking of it, is how Craig, with the whole Venita thing, he was able to take like a smidge of accountability because Venita did it first. Like, Venita essentially modeled, right? Here's how to own your shit, just period. No buts, no excuses. Own it. Apologize, end, right? That took Craig's defenses down. And the best he was able to squeak out was like, okay, I could have come to you. Maybe, okay, I guess I could have, right? He said a couple of things that made me hopeful that he is maybe able to have some of that. But then by the end, I was just like, it was clear to me that this cast they want to keep the status quo. And I'm like,
yeah.
I don't like it, Mandy. I don't like it.
Oh, I miss Shannon Bedore. Oh, my fave. Yeah, Craig is just, it's hard to watch. And I think what was the most like jarring part of the reunion for me was when he was sitting next to Andy and he was like saying that he was sort of mad at himself because he was so good all season and then blew up at the end. And now that's kind of like all anyone's talking about. And the rest of them are like, you were like that the whole season. And then what was interesting is that Madison at the end was like, well, maybe you can go back and watch how you were. Like it told me that she does want accountability from him, but she was like, I can't play that role because everyone else is doing that. And he needs to feel like he has an ally or he will bolt. And we can't have him bolting because I just paid $3.9 million for my house.
Boom. And now Mandy said it. And
I need that mortgage
that
paid.
Is exactly
yeah.
correct, honey. Yeah.
I think so. I don't think it's like necessarily how she really feels. I think she's real friends with all of them. And that's why she said, like, we're all friends. Like, I think she genuinely has a relationship with every single person on that show. And I'm always shocked by like how close she is with these people, especially when Rodrigo was asked about like getting married maybe next season. And like, would you have Austin officiate? And he's like, no, Madison would. And it's like, that means like him and his fiance feel very, very, very close to Madison. Right. And that means that like, this is more than just a show. This is something that, and with Austin, I also think Austin and Rodrigo are really good friends. And that's fun to watch too. Like, I think Austin feels more comfortable hanging out with Rodrigo and Madison than he does with Shep and Craig. And
well, of course, because
I enjoy watching that
Craig,
more.
Just a slightly different version of Craig. Like Shep is someone, like you said, he doesn't show these problematic characteristics outside of drinking, but also he's like very avoidant. Well, to me, they're cut from a similar cloth. And Shep is projecting, when he talked about, I know what it is to feel badly from acting out with alcohol and all that other stuff. And I don't want him to be a pariah. But then like Shep is also calling Craig on some of this stuff. And I thought it was interesting that Sally and some of the other people, they were like, you've yelled at us all season. This isn't new behavior for Craig. That's what irritates me. As you said, when we look back, that a reunion where Craig is like roasting Madison and just like so nasty. He has always had these characteristics. But I think the one thing before we kind of wrap all this up is that really I was shocked about is when Craig admitted that he was trying to hold on to basically control of Charlie at the end. And I was like, does no one else find that extremely concerning?
Well, Charlie did. She was in tears.
Right. It's like she had an appropriate reaction where Craig is like trying to claim, right? Because his ego is bruised, right? He just was broken up with by someone who is now on a meteoric rise. And he is trying to grasp at straws, and the straw is Charlie. And he refused to acknowledge, admit, and understand that for Charlie, seeing his behavior was like, that was it. Time of death, like beep, that's all. And I think for him, his ego can't allow that to be true. Right. So he kept fighting it and trying to tell Charlie that's unfair. So you're telling a woman how she feels is unfair because you don't like it? Sir, please sit down. I can't.
Well, he couldn't accept that her feelings, she was never fully all in with him. She wasn't sure.
Sure.
But she became sure after Mexico, where she was like, I didn't like that behavior and I was no longer interested. And she shared that with him directly. And he wouldn't accept it then, and he still won't accept it now. He's like, it was Sally.
Right.
That's the reason that it didn't work out.
Yep.
It can't possibly be my own behavior that terrified her in that van, and how I behaved at all of the dinners when I was screaming at Venita. Like, Charlie was like, what is this? I don't want to be around a person like this. We forget, like, she wasn't around him before. She wasn't around the last 9 seasons. She didn't know him. This is, and he can be extremely charming. And so she was seeing his charming side and not the other side. And then when the other side came out, she was like, no, I'm out. This isn't for me. And then he had the audacity to be like, Charlie was love bombing me.
Right. I'm like, Craig, please. Craig, please. Love bombing you? Get the fuck out of here. I talked about this on my social media. Craig's manipulation at using his charm. There are some behaviors that when I see them, they give me feelings in my body because they're so indicative of like a greater issue. And that is one of them. But I did like an Ask Me Anything on Instagram. And what people said is like, why do you think people support Craig's behavior. And one of the reasons, I think there's several, is that his charm and manipulation carries over into his parasocial relationships. I think he is that charming. I think he has used that charm to manipulate for so long that it goes through the TV to parasocial relationships. And that is a scary personality characteristic. Someone who can turn it on and try to say to Charlie, "Oh, you don't mean that. We can never be apart from each other. You don't really want that." Like, that is so sick.
So there is something about him, though, where he really is good with fans in a way that I don't know that the rest of the cast is. That, like, Shep doesn't want to have to pretend to be happy to hang around a bunch of, middle-aged women who watch Bravo if he's not feeling it. Mm-hmm. But Craig, I think, gets energy from it, and he enjoys it, and he's really good at it. It reminds me of Kyle, and I know we're going to get into Summer House, but when Kyle goes out with everyone and Amanda's hanging out with the other members of the house, and Kyle's hanging out with strangers at the club because he gets energy from being fawned over by fans. And
yes.
Craig gets that too. Like, he gets energy from it.
You're so right.
That's something that's just really interesting, where, like, Amanda is sort of like, why would I hang out with a bunch of strangers when my friends are all here? And Kyle, when he's not getting the attention that he wants from his friends, he goes to strangers who will give him the attention. He just needs attention all the time.
Right. And, we kind of talked about on your podcast, Amanda from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, because we joke there's too many Kyles and Amandas having trouble, right? Which we just realized between Beverly Hills and between Summer House, Kyles and Amandas are having a hard time. But when you're someone who needs adoration without question, when you're someone who needs to be in an echo chamber, when you're someone who needs to be put on a pedestal, that's not relationships. That's cult leader behavior, which, by the way, Bravo fans are happy to be like, "Oh, Craig, you're my leader. Yes, please." And it's like,
I'm guilty of it too. I love Shannon Bedore. I will cheer for her anytime I see her walk into a room. It sounds like she's a monster behind closed doors. I don't care. I love her.
Mandy, no. Okay, don't worry.
I love her.
Everyone. Well, I'm going to decultify Mandy's brain after this. So I'm going to deprogram you. I'm just kidding.
I feel like at least she's being real. Do you know what I mean? She's not like pretending. I don't know. Anyways, she's a mess. And I love the mess. I love watching her. I'm very entertained by her.
Sure.
But yeah, Kyle, hanging out at a club and hanging out with a bunch of strangers and then yelling at his wife for hanging out with their friends is crazy behavior. And when he said, "You're hanging out with my friends," this is his issue. He's like, "This is my show. I brought you on my show. You are a supporting character. I am the main character. And now you've become the main character? What do you mean where, like, when you're sitting, everyone's sitting around you and talking? Like, if that's supposed to be me, you're taking it from me." And his, like, shtick of dancing and being silly at a party and, like, peeing in the woods, it's not cute anymore. It's not funny anymore. And it's weird. And the rest of the people are, like, not as into it, right? And so Amanda is the cool girl that people want to hang out with, that people think is really funny. Jesse said something about Amanda being the funniest woman he knows. And I believe she's got a really good sense of humor. So yeah, people want to be around her, and he's jealous. He has so many jealousy issues. And I can't get over him talking about his financial stuff. Like, go to therapy, get help for that. Get help figuring out to go to a financial planner, like, figure your shit out. Don't take it out on other people because you made gambles and bets, that you're unable, that didn't pay off. Like, figure out, can you keep running Loverboy in a smaller capacity? I mean, I talked to Craig's, like, business partner, Jerry, at BravoCon, and he said one of the things that they made a mistake in is they expanded too quickly, right? And they had to close one of their stores, and they realized that, like, yes, it's good to have a flagship store. It's good to have a brick and mortar. But we can't have too many of them because we actually didn't have the people buying all the products. Like, we need, we do most of our business online, that kind of thing. And I thought that was really interesting. I was interested in how their businesses work and things like that. Loverboy, like he has to find a way to make this thing keep running if it is so important for him to have it.
Well, right. But the thing that Kyle's doing, which is wild to me, is like, and this is his whole personality. He's just complaining about things that are happening, like he's a victim of it, like he has no autonomy, like he has no agency over his own life. And then is, this is the definition, by the way, of a king baby. And when Kyle, by the way, when he was having this tantrum wearing that crown, I cannot tell you how many people messaged me and they were like, it wrote itself in terms of the king baby thing. And I was like, oh my God, it's a gift from the heavens. He's literally like having this temper tantrum wearing a crown. But the whole king baby thing says that people who struggle with alcohol or with addiction, they think that the world should bend to their will. They think that everything happens to them is unfair. They're a perpetual victim. And that is Kyle's personality to a T. This is your business. Where's your sense of agency and autonomy over? Do something about it. If it's flailing, I mean, there are people to help figure that sort of stuff out, right? But this is the crux of his problem. He lays down in the pile of garbage of his life that he's created, whining about, are you all not doing more for me? When it's like, well, what are you doing for you? What I think really upset Kyle too is not only that jealousy piece that you mentioned with Amanda, like these are my friends. And it's like, sir, people don't even really like you this season because you're acting like such an asshole. He was DJing or whatever, and then they all went outside and talked. And it really reminded me of like when a child is angry that you are no longer willing to watch them play. And then they like get pissed off and have a tantrum.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
Kyle. Yeah. He's like, Mommy and Daddy won't watch me DJ anymore. Man. So I'm going to go out and tell my wife to fuck off. And it's like, you're a child. You are a literal child.
Also, his perspective has always been off, where he doesn't value, I think, some of the things that the rest of them value. So like Amanda has always valued their relationship and the marriage over business. And he hasn't. And when him and Carl are sitting there and he's opening up to Carl about how bad the state of affairs is with Loverboy, Carl says something to the effect of, well, at least you have Amanda. Like, even if your business fails and all these things go wrong, you have the love of your life. You know what I mean? You can get through anything. And that's when I realized that Kyle, he just doesn't, he's not like, oh, I'll be fine as long as my family's okay, or I'll be fine as long as my marriage is okay. It's like, I'll be fine as long as my business is okay. And that's just where his priority is.
Yeah, his business is an extension of his identity.
Yes.
So I think for him, it's like if the business fails, then I've failed. Because men tend to have their identity super connected to their career. So to your point, I think that's a big part of it.
Which and maybe it will fail. And maybe you need to go back to the drawing board. I know he's an entrepreneur. He's been involved in other entrepreneurial efforts. I know Loverboy is something he cares about deeply, but Amanda was a huge part of Loverboy's success. I'm not a fan of the product, but I'm a fan of the merch. So I would buy merch, even though I didn't like the product. And Amanda was entirely behind the merch. She was behind all of the design. I don't see how Loverboy can continue if they are getting divorced and Amanda is no longer a part of the business. I just don't think, and people aren't drinking as much anymore. Like the younger generations, like alcohol is not as much of a thing. And the market is super saturated.
Yeah. I mean, there was a recent study put out that I wish I had the statistics in front of me, but it's like a huge percentage of the younger generation, they don't drink alcohol. They use THC or nothing at all, or maybe other substances. But I mean, I think, the younger generation, which I believe is because people who were raised on parents, I was raised by an alcoholic, it does tend to really sour your thoughts about alcohol. So obviously this episode we see Andy talked about was Kyle's worst episode in 10 years. And we see why, because he literally verbally abused Amanda. What I appreciated is that when the episode aired, Kyle posted on his Instagram a sincere apology with no ifs, ands, buts, or excuses. And I feel like Craig and Kyle are cut from the same cloth, but Kyle's different in that when he has people who are like, this really wasn't okay, he won't pull a Craig about it. He'll be like, okay, I understand. This was really bad. Did you see his response on
Yeah,
social media?
I thought it was good. I feel like the way he has handled the divorce seems to be the both of them are not saying negative things about each other. You know, they're being kind and talking about each other. And I think they're taking the high road. And I think that's a beautiful thing, you know, because this doesn't have to be contentious. It's two people who want different things out of life. And it doesn't make sense for them to be together anymore. And once they were finally able
Right.
to give up the idea of them being together forever, then they realized they could both achieve their own happiness.
Right. I think with all the stuff on reality TV lately, like the Taylor Frankie Paul stuff and, you know, the stuff with Craig, I guess I'm just feeling like I don't want to see abuse on my TV. I don't want to see it. It's harmful to people watching. It's not fun. And I'm hopeful that Summer House, I thought, well, okay, well, they'll be able to pivot. But then obviously now there's all of this drama going surrounding Amanda, West, and Sierra, which, you know, by the way, we talk about on part 1 of your podcast. We talk about some of that. But like now I'm a little bit concerned. I'm like, I don't think the issue with them moving forward will be Kyle and Amanda. It'll be whatever's happening with Kyle, Amanda, and West, which is so
Yeah.
wild to think about. That
Yeah.
like Kyle can come out of this season and be like different. And now this might be what creates the drama. So, I mean, again, I know we already talked about this on your podcast, but the drama is that Amanda and Sierra, they did a separate Amazon Live. They were supposed to do it together. They aren't supporting each other on social media. And there's been a lot of talk on the internet and no one is saying anything. And that to me, I think is the greatest concern of like, oh, something is going on. But, you know, this podcast, we don't really do idle gossip or whatever. Like, who knows what it is about?
Yeah.
I mean, can you share what your theory was?
Wait, what was my?
Do you
I
remember what your
think
theory?
there is a chance that something happened. And I think it's that Amanda just, it's like a little bit like the Jesse Draper situation on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, in that like she has been with someone who has been putting her down for so long that the second anyone pays attention to her that is positive and telling her that she's pretty and that she's cool and that they enjoy spending time with her, she will eat that right up. It will be so intoxicating that she will forget everything else. And Jessie did that recently with Chase, her friend Miranda's ex. And I think there's a chance that maybe Amanda did something with West. And, you know, she's in a hurt position. And, you know, when she's in a vulnerable position, you know? And so any guy who comes in and gives her what she has been looking for 10 years, she might want to be around them.
Yeah. I mean, after being with an emotionally unavailable king baby for a decade, West's emotional intelligence and attention could be very intoxicating. And that, I swear to you, I didn't believe any of these rumors until I saw this last episode. And then
how he was
West
so
attended
responsive
to Amanda.
Yeah.
I was like, not because of his behavior, but I'm saying because how I know that made her feel. Like, for example, Amanda said, you know, I don't cry about this anymore, which is incredibly sad because I think what happens is if you're in a marriage for over a decade with someone who's emotionally unavailable, you're going to start dissociating, which is like disconnecting your mind from your body and yourself from the situation, because that's the only way to survive being in what you know to be a relationship that's not meeting your needs. So I think Amanda is certainly checked out. She's very kind of like dissociated.
Well, when Wes was comforting her, she did start crying, right? And it was like...
That was the point. Okay, so she said, I don't cry about this anymore. But for some reason, she said, I cried 3 times in the last 24 hours. And I think that that's because normally when Kyle's pulling this shit, she has no one to validate the fact that he's out of his mind. She has no one to support her and no one to stand up for her. West supporting her, validating her, I think that's what made her cry. I think what we're seeing is she's dissociated, but she's also grief-stricken. And when she sees what this can look like for a man to stand up for me and to support me, that I think is what caused that reaction. What else, before we wrap up, what else about Summer House? Is there anything? Yeah.
KJ and Dara and Bailey and Lindsay. I loved how KJ was so vulnerable with Mia and Sierra talking about how he really likes Dara, but now he's unsure and maybe he's like pulling away just because he really likes her, maybe self-sabotaging, and Sierra said something about like, don't allow yourself to love even though it's scary.
Even though, right, it can hurt.
And then he said what he had heard about Dara, and they were kind of like, why don't you just talk to her about it? And then he did. And Dara was like, yeah, no, I was not messing around with Ben. I put my stuff in his room and I changed in his room. And that's why I came out with different clothes. She seemed not at all concerned about she's like, no, that's crazy. And we know KJ and Dara are together today. So clearly she has let him know that like you, I understand I was flirting with you and I was flirting with Ben, but you were the one I was interested in. You're the one I'm with. You're the one I really like. And I think KJ was just getting in his own head, of course, but she is validating him at every turn. And I feel like had he kept it in and not spoken to her about it, it could have driven a wedge between them with, it
would have for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so glad he talked about it. I do think Bailey is reckless with her words, but I find her incredibly entertaining. She just says a lot of things.
Funny.
And I think, she has jealousy of Dara because Dara was getting attention from Ben, who Bailey was into. And so anyone that's getting attention from Ben, if it's Amanda, if it's, Dara, she's pissed and she'll say shit. And maybe she really did believe that something was going on because that's what she wrote in her head. She walked into Ben's room, exaggerating that they spent an hour. She came out in different clothes. What? Dara had no interest in Ben after that weekend. She was right away going on dates with KJ and told him.
Yeah. And it's funny. So KJ and I, we talk a little bit. We DM a little bit. He follows me. I follow him. He, by the way, he reached out to me, which was really sweet. Because I had posted something about appreciating his sharing his mental health journey, because men's mental health, it matters. It's very important. And so he reached out to me and he thanked me and we have a nice relationship. He actually said he'd come on the pod. So I'm working on that, getting that in the works.
That would be amazing. Oh my God, I love him so much.
Yeah, I do too. But I think that he was on Watch What Happens Live and Dara was in the audience and they say that they love each other to each other. And because I follow him and he follows me, he's in my feed. And every time he posts something, it doesn't matter how many likes or comments it gets, she's always supporting him. Dara is. And so all I can say is that through my real life experience with KJ, they do seem to have something very real.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that if something's bothering you, you just got to talk about it because that's the only way for better or worse, good, bad, or ugly, to spend uncertainty questioning or thinking what's going on is just not healthy. So I love that he was able to model how to do that in a way that was respectful and not blaming and just hey, I was in my head about this. I love KJ. I think he's amazing. I love Mia. To me, Mia.
Oh my
KJ,
God. Love her. What a great character. And honestly, the costumes, aside from just how profound they are when they speak, the costumes were so good. I was laughing out loud watching by myself. What? And then the persona.
Karma Brown, her saggy titties. Mandy, I was just Sierra just is a queen. She's just a queen.
She's so funny. And it's always interesting that she chooses costumes that make her less sexy because I think she wants people to see her for her creativity and her humor and her personality and not just the way that they look at her as a model. So I always enjoy that. But Mia was so
too.
funny when she's like coming down the staircase being like, Jesus, this is so good. And they all just have like such a good sense of humor about everything. And I think it's so important to have a sense of humor about getting older because it is something that I think people fear so much. But you have to be able to laugh at it and you have to be able to like maintain your youthful spirit. And I could see them all being old and laughing their asses off still, you know?
Yeah, they joked. They all joked around the kitchen island. They were like, here's to season, 54 or whatever. And I was just like, you know what? I love that for you all. And I hoped that actually comes true. But I think, it's funny. My birthday's coming up, and 2 days after my birthday is, the anniversary of surviving a cancer I wasn't supposed to survive. And so around this time of year, I get very pensive and thoughtful. And there's the saying within Stoicism. It's called memento mori, which in Latin, it translates to literally, remember, we will all die. And why I'm sharing this is that aging is a gift, not given to all. And while it's scary and it has a lot of psychological components in terms of like existentialism and all these other things, I just think that it's so important for us to like aging is a beautiful thing. Wrinkles are beautiful. They're all gifts. And I don't know. I like that they kind of made fun out of it. And I just think it's a topic that's really important that doesn't get talked about a lot. It doesn't have to be so scary and all of that. None of us are getting out of this alive. So we might as well try to be our best selves and do the best we can while we're here.
That was very beautiful.
Well,
and
maybe
profound.
That's a good way to end the pod. Yeah. Well, Mandy, this has been a joy. I have missed you so much, but please tell everyone where they can find you in part 1 of this podcast.
Yeah. So you can find me anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's Is This Real Life with Mandy Slutzker. And you can find me on Instagram. And I'm also on Threads, but I don't really know. Like I've only I don't think I've posted many threads. I have responded to some and it doesn't always work. It's hard to have conversations with people who like someone was like, oh, that was someone responded to me, that was a rhetorical question. And I was like, oh, like I really thought they wanted the answer and I had the answer. So I was like, like someone was asking like, why are ICE and Customs and Border Patrol like still functioning, whereas TSA has no money? And I was like,
and you're like, oh, I
can explain this to you. I actually work in this space.
And they're like, no, I meant.
And I didn't do it in a rude way. I was like, because it is confusing. You're like, why on earth does like these agencies have money when they say that there's no money? And it's like they were funded by the Reconciliation Bill HR1. So they don't need money for the next like 7 years. So they can they have this slush fund. And TSA does not have a slush fund. And it sucks. And anyways, but you can find me on Threads or on Instagram at Mandy Slutzker. I was just like, what an idiot I am. Explain to me like I'm 5 why this is happening. And I was like, I actually can do that. And I was like so earnest, and Mandy, people are just jerks sometimes.
Earnest, darling.
Because it's not like, well, I hate when people do it when I'm like explaining something and it's like, why would you know that? Why would I expect other people to know that? This is the area that I work in. This is the area that I know about. I don't know about March Madness. I don't know about the war in Iran. Like if I had questions about those things and someone else was explaining it to me, I'd be like, wow, thank you. That's so like interesting. But stop asking fucking questions on the internet that you don't want answered.
Well, Mandy, as you said on part 1 of our podcast, is that the internet is where joy goes
Dreams
to die.
go to die.
Dreams go to die. There we go. So I think we've answered our question. And the one thing though we appreciate about you is that like you do when you have the knowledge about the stuff, I mean, it's complex. It's not
why would people know that?
Right. I just love that you try to earnestly speak about things and share your experience and knowledge. And unfortunately, some people are just going to be dicks about it, which I don't like, but
But the same with you, like
what it is.
You're explaining triangulation. Like, I don't know what that is, right? I'm like listening to you, learning, like, wow, oh, that's so interesting, Like, because not everyone knows everything. That's why when you share the things that you know, it's great because we're all learning.
That's right. Well, and that's why people love us, and that's why we love us, because we're two people who we don't know everything. We know what we do. And outside of that, I'm not trying to say I know anything. I think, having the humility to understand that you know some things, but not a lot of other things is really important. And again, people like about us that we have a genuine curiosity about life in the world and, all those things. So listen, not to toot our own horn, but I've just missed us and I'm glad we're back. Toot toot. How about that? Toot toot. So yes, please check Mandy out. Is This Real Life with Mandy Slutzker? Check her out on Instagram. And please, of course, check me out, Your Bish Therapist on Instagram. Patreon is growing and I'm super grateful about that. You can join for free. So go over to patreon.com/YourBishTherapist and kind of come see what that's all about. But for today, thank you so much for joining us. Sending love to you and yours. And ta-ta for now.
Bye-bye.
Disclaimer. Posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Bish Therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Greyheart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, or hear on YBT podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email and or social media does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.